Trying. We're
All
trying,
right.
bud. We're trying.
Good deal.
You're live.
Here we are.
You can't see yourself, but you can go.
Well, we're live. This is Ohio Bigfoot Researchers, and this is Tim Gayhart, and we have a guest on our show tonight. That's Jason B. Miller, and he's got some information and some knowledge to share with everybody. How you doing, Jason?
I'm good. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but
Yeah,
hey,
we knew it, this man.
it's all good. It's all right. So, thanks for last week. Last week was in my opinion, a good show.
Oh, it was an awesome show, buddy. Thank you.
You bet. So today, I'm gonna go through an encounter that myself and a friend had, and not a visual. So this is just going to be an auditory encounter that we had. And it's one of my favorite ones to tell, strictly because I had a person with me initially, and how everything transpired. It, in my opinion, just kind of, it sheds the light on how intelligent some of these beings are. So after my initial encounter, I started a Facebook page just for a local thing to do in my area. And right off the bat, people just started hitting me up left and right, telling me their encounters privately, sharing them openly. One guy in particular who lives 75, 80 miles away from me, him and I struck up a rapport real quick. And just one of those rapports that just happen sporadically, organically, and never met the guy in person until this one evening. So every year I go to the same spot elk hunting in late October. And for the first couple years in this area, my wife, my children, we had encounters in this area as a family group. Most of them were in the summertime. And once the normal hunting season starts, I stay out of the woods in certain areas. There's just too many people road hunting, kicking stuff around. So late October comes around, and I go up to my spot where I hunt religiously, and I know this area very well. And I have one of those canvas wall tents, pretty large one, 18 by 24, sleeps about 12 guys. And this year, every one of my hunting buddies had bailed on me. So I was by myself, and no problem. So this friend of mine who I'd never met, he hits me up on Facebook Messenger, and he says, "Do you mind if I come up with you elk hunting?" I'm like, "Great, let's do it." So I give him the GPS coordinates, and the night before opening season, I'm sitting around the campfire by myself, and I'm thinking, well, it's close to midnight. I don't think this guy's showing up, because there's no cell service up where I'm at, zero. And lo and behold, right around midnight, here he comes pulling in. Now, first time I've ever met this guy in person. And just like we've known each other forever. We just started sitting around the campfire, talking, having a good old time. And he has had other encounters himself in Minnesota, but he had another one in Washington, but in a completely different county. So we're sitting there talking, mutually discussing these encounters we've had. And he just kind of reaches in his front right pocket and he pulls out two little rocks that he carries. And he looks at me kind of like, should I do it? Should I do it? And I knew what he was talking about. And I says, go for it. So he took the two rocks, clacks them together. A couple minutes later, I think he does it again. And then we get a response. Now, this isn't just a normal response that you would hear in the woods at this time of night. This was a response to his rock clacking. So about 50 yards from our camp is this little tiny creek, just trickling with water. And that's where the sounds came from. My best guesstimate would be roughly 100, 150 yards behind our camp. Now, I'm camped right on the side of this Forest Service road on this flat little spot. The only spot in this area where I could put up my size of a tent. Now, after we got these rock clack responses, we're both just like, you know, wow, what are the chances of that? And we're sitting, continuing to talk about how cool it was to get a response. Now, we're going over all the possibilities. Could it have been a deer walking through the creek bed? The hooves making this noise. We ruled all that out. So, again, this is the first time we've met. So we're sitting there over the campfire, having a good old time, and got pretty late. And we got up the next morning. We hunted all day long. Didn't see a single elk, which is normal. And I already had plans to go home the next day, regardless of who was with me or by myself. I had to be home the next day for a personal matter, but I was coming back the previous day. So that night, after we get done hunting, we're sitting around the campfire, and I couldn't remember for the life of me what time it was, but it got pretty late, and we decided to go retire for bed. So we're inside the tent, and I'm closest to the wood stove, so I'm maintaining the fire. My buddy, and the best way I can put this is that him and I are just sitting in my tent. Again, we're wound up, trying to calm down and relax, trying to fall asleep for the next day. Well, I decide to lay back on my back and just get comfortable on top of my sleeping bag because it's starting to get pretty warm inside. And right about the time that I lay back on my back, the best way people have described this now, and I've been hearing this terminology a lot lately, a thunder knock. Now, I wouldn't use this term, thunder knock, but it's what's been kind of going around lately. What occurred was him and I had kind of calmed down. Our chatter had kind of slowed down. We're both kind of drifting off. And all of a sudden, the most powerful sound, not of a small limb, but in my opinion, this had to have been a large diameter log slammed up like a baseball bat up against another standing pine tree. Now, people hear wood knocks in the woods all the time. I have a theory on that, but that's not what this is about. This thunder knock was so close to where we were laying that it actually reverberated through the walls, and you could feel the power shake your internal organs. Not only like sound waves, it was so powerful. And then it kind of just moved on and echoed. Now, people have asked me to describe it. It ain't no gunshot. It ain't no shotgun blast close. This was as if something had picked up a large diameter tree and just swung it as hard as they could against a standing tree. So my friend in the back of the tent, he goes, "Did you hear that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yes, of course." We're sitting here just blasted away with sound instantly. Now, was this a tree knock? Absolutely not. Was this somebody playing jokes on us or tricks on us? There's nobody around us. So I cannot explain what created this sound. But if you spend time in the woods enough, you get to know the normal sounds of the forest. This was not a tree falling. This was not a limb falling from above and working its way down. This was an intentional blast of sound towards us. It was so close to us that I believe if I had walked out of the tent, well, the campfire was pretty much down, but right behind our tent, about 20 yards, was a tree line. Behind that, it was clear cut. Acres and acres and acres behind us. Nothing. So whatever had swung this tree log against another tree, it was in this tree line. We never walked out to look. I had a hard time sleeping that night, and so did my friend. So the next morning, as I mentioned, I had to go home. The guy who came up and was visiting me, he left. He went home. He says, "I am not staying here overnight by myself with what just occurred." It scared him that bad. And he left, gone. At the same time, I was heading home. So two guys having this massive sound blast towards us was enough to spook him and have him drive all the way home instead of staying there that night. So, of course, the next day during daylight, we kind of looked out behind the tent, and there was some logs on the ground. There's no way of us knowing which one it was, but from the rock clacks to this thunder knock, something was in this area. And as I mentioned earlier, the whole year or the whole summer prior, my wife and my family, we had encounters in this same area. So I can kind of put two and two together and assume that they were in this area. Now, I come back the next day. So I was home for the night, and he was home for the night. I come back to camp the next day, and in the morning, and I go back up to my spot, and I spend the whole day doing my elk hunting. And I expected him to be back at camp by dark. I figured he would come back sometime during the day and just be hanging around until I got back right at dark. He didn't come back. He didn't come back. He wasn't there. So I figured he wasn't coming back at all. And again, there's no cell service up there, so there was no way to communicate. So that evening, I am by myself, and I'm hanging around the campfire. It was roughly midnight. Now, after midnight, I wrote him off. I says, he's not coming back. So right around midnight, I decide to get ready to go to bed. Got a few hours to get up next morning, go do my snooping and pooping again. So I go out to my truck, put the key in the ignition, and I just wanted to check the temperature. And it was 10 degrees Fahrenheit. So cold. Now, I go back to the campfire, and I make sure the embers are pretty much out. And I get in my tent. So my tent has a full zipper, and then it has buckles. So it has two separate ways of closing the front of the tent. So I get inside, and I have it all secured in the front. I start stoking up the wood stove, get it nice and warm in there. And I start to get a little drowsy, lay on my cot. I'm laying on top of my sleeping bag. And where I have my camp at, there's only one road in from the main road down below. One road in. And it comes up. It then passes me. And it continues up for 4.5, maybe 5 miles at the top of this mountain. At the top of the mountain, there's a roundabout. And then you drive your way down. Now, I need to back up here. Right before dark, I decided to drive to the top of the mountain at the roundabout, come down, and I parked on the side of the road so I could watch this large group of aspen trees. And I was hoping that some elk would be moving through the aspen trees right at dusk and work their way down to wherever they were going to go bed at for the night. So they didn't come through. So I go down, I park my truck, fast forward to where I'm laying in my tent. So nobody has been on this road except for myself. Zero. The whole time I'm there, I also have game cameras set up around my tent to monitor not only the traffic, but also sticky-fingered people. You know, in case somebody comes in when I'm not there, takes any of my equipment or whatever. But they're hidden. So I know nobody's been up and down this road but myself. So now I'm laying in my tent on top of my sleeping bag. And it's just past midnight. 10 degrees outside. Now, I'm very hard of hearing in my left ear, but I'm very hard of hearing in my left ear, but I'm very good at hearing in my right. So as I'm laying in my tent on the cot, I heard way up where this roundabout is at, in exactly that direction. I could hear the faintest sound of somebody running. Now, that's a long distance to hear somebody running on a very old Forest Service road. Now, at night, it's cold, sound echoes. It can travel a long distance. But it was crystal clear to me that something two-legged was running. And just trying to figure out in my head, did I miss a vehicle? Did I miss an ATV? Did somebody walk in from below? All these were going through my mind as I'm laying there. But the sound continues to get ever so slightly louder. Now, I've always stated this. It sounded like somebody was running in heavy, heavy steel-toed boots. The sound of this running motion was very, very, very loud, even at that distance away. So I'm just laying in my tent, and I'm hearing this sound coming closer and closer and closer. Now, the whole time I'm thinking it's a person, but why would they be running this late at night? And the sound it was making, it just wasn't adding up. So, again, I'm laying there, hearing this sound getting closer and closer and closer. On this road, which I have driven countless times, I know every curve, bend, switchback. I know it very well. So I know that whatever's running down this road, once it gets to this particular spot, it's going to come up over this little slight rise, and then it will have a crystal clear view, not only my tent, my truck. I mean, you couldn't miss it. So I'm laying there and I'm thinking, as soon as whatever's running down this road, once it gets to the spot, I'm hoping that it would be a person calling out either maybe help or hello, getting my attention for whatever reason. So I'm laying there, and I know that this sound is right at this particular spot on the road. And the thought in my mind was, should I get up, unzip, unbuckle, and get out in the cold and get this person's attention? But I didn't. I just laid there thinking, I'll wait for this person to get my attention. Well, the sound got closer and closer, and the closer it got, the louder and more intense the ground was just shaking. I mean, you could just feel the vibrations just reverberating closer and closer and closer and more intense.
If you had to guess, how much would you think it'd weigh?
Well, I've always stated this, and I stand by this. There's no way that I would be able to put a size on it, a poundage, but I was in the military with Shaquille O'Neal's dad. I also watched Shaquille O'Neal grow up from a teenager to college. So his dad is a very large man. Shaquille O'Neal at the time was a very large dude also. I put this weight sound as two of Shaquille O'Neal at his weight, not currently now, but when he was playing in the NBA. If I had to put a number on it, again, which would be impossible. I've always said between 8 and 1,000 pounds. The way that the pounding of the running stride motions were just shaking. So once it passed my tent, now my truck is parked on the side of the road, and then my tent. So as it passed my vehicle, I jumped up. I was instantly up because now I know it's not a person. Now it's starting to click in my mind. So I get up, I unzip the tent, getting those buckles undone, jump out, I get onto the road. It's a crystal clear night, not a cloud in the sky, almost a full moon. Just, again, it was 10 degrees. The road, the substrate on the road during the daytime was a little gooey that you could leave a footprint. But this time of night, frozen solid. The mud, the water, the ground had ice crystals because it was frozen so solid. But I jumped out there as fast as I could, hoping that I could catch a glimpse of it. Well, just as I get out past my truck onto the road and I look to my left, there was this white-tailed deer buck was one of the largest deer I had ever seen in this area. I mean, he was a trophy. He's about 30 yards from me to my left. So when I get out there onto the road, this buck is standing on the road. And I look to my left. This buck looks to me, to who its right. It looks to its left. And this buck and I, we're going back and forth because we can still hear whatever ran by continuing to run past and continue to head down the road.
Oh, he's not talking to me.
Are you still there?
Yes, sir.
She just had to say something.
Okay. So whatever it was also caught the attention of this big white-tailed buck to come out from wherever it was at. And it came out to investigate what just ran by. Now, I ran back in the tent and I grabbed a flashlight and I came out and I lit up that road trying to find any impressions I could find. I looked as hard as I could, but because it was frozen solid, there was nothing to be found. Nothing. So could it have been a person? No way. Not the powerful emissions of its foot. Oh, it was so loud. It was so loud. Not only that, but the length, the time between each stride was not like somebody running on a treadmill. There was a second and a half roughly between each footstep as it was running. So we've got something with extremely large stride running motion. So at this time of the year, late October, right before winter hits. Now, where I live, we get pretty good winters. So in my time going over this audio encounter, the best way that I have come to accepting this fact is that it had no care in the world running right past me. Why didn't it deviate? Why did it not maybe get closer and then sneak around but it had no problem running right past my vehicle and where I was laying at. So the only thing I can think of is that bears, other animals, they need to save as much calories as they can for winter. So if it had deviated around me or tried to hide itself, in my opinion, it would have used up more caloric intake than it did running by me to save energy for the winter. But I stand by this. Nothing's going to change my mind because I was by myself only. That it came from above. No other people were up there. It ran right past me. And then, except for a human witness, I had this massive whitetail buck as a witness. And if only that deer could have spoke. I mean,
Yeah.
Who knows what it would have said? But the look on its face, because it was just perfectly illuminated, was in awe. It was like, to me, it was like, did you see that? And I'm like, did you? You know, that's the look we were having. And after I came out with a flashlight and looked on the ground, it was gone. It went back to go bed down.
Now this
So,
is the same area that you had your encounter with the little one and the other one, wasn't it?
This is a completely different county. 100 miles as the crow flies. What's kind of, this spot is now my number one spot that I go to. It's where I go and concentrate most of my time. So my buddy shows up the next day and I tell him about this. Of course, he believes me because of what happened the couple nights prior. So we go out the next day, we split off, and he has his own encounter that spooked him. And I wish he was here to tell it, but I'm going to do it the best way I can for him. So he goes up to this spot and he decides to sit in one area and just watch over this giant clear cut where the elk move back and forth. And so he decided to sit and post up for the day. And he's sitting there. Now, I wasn't there, so it's just himself. And the best way he describes this is mouth popping, like that smacking of lips. And it came from kind of behind him a little bit. So he kind of turned to look in one direction. Then in another direction, there was a response to that mouth pop or whatever made that sound. There was a response from another direction. And then from another direction, there was another one. Not the same sounds. Each one was distinct of its own. Now, bears can pop their jaws. Bears can make a popping noise.
Yeah.
But what is the chances of one and then another direction and then in another direction? So he sat in this spot and he wasn't about to get up and move. It freaked him out. He didn't want to get up and move at all. Because of what happened to him a couple nights prior with this thunder knock that freaked him out. So now he's by himself and he sat there just before dark, and then he boogied his butt back down to camp because he was not going to walk back down at dark like I would have, I stayed till dark and then worked my way back down. But he headed back before it got dark. And every year since that we've gone back up there, we've had encounters, whether it's auditory, the traditional things being thrown at us. We had a tree pushed over, not one that fell naturally, but was intentionally pushed. So this area that I go to, they're in there, and they let us know. Nothing ever aggressive, but yeah, that's my little encounter of our elk hunting encounter, or my elk hunting trip with a stranger that I had just met, and things just popped off right away.
That's like the area where we go down there at Salt Fork. The first encounter with the little one, we heard a mouth pop, and the little one went around the tree just to get in to hide. Then we've also had a big male push a tree over and was running up the hill. I got a picture of it running up the hill from after it pushed it. It wasn't no dead tree. It was cracking when it was pushing. Just like you could hear the wood just cracking and splintering.
Exactly.
And we've had sticks and rocks and stuff thrown at us, and they'll you get glimpses of them going around the hillside, peeking around a tree at you and stuff. Yeah, when there's an active area and they figure out you're there, they're going to agitate you a little bit because they like seeing the reactions out of human beings.
Mm-hmm.
We're their entertainment while we're in their area.
Absolutely.
Some of them couldn't get aggressive if you start intruding too close to either their while they're sleeping or they're young, they have young there or something, or you come up on them in the nighttime and they're feeding and you interrupt their meal. Yeah, they might get a little bit aggressive then. But yeah, there's a lot of similarities and a lot of encounters about mouth popping and hearing them walk. We had an incident just back in April in 23. So no, this April 24. We was down there at Salt Fork, and we was up to the handicap area, and that would have been on a Thursday night. And we was just sitting there under the pavilion and stuff, and a couple guys went up to the one pavilion that's up. I don't remember. I ain't figured out the exact directions down there, what's north, east, south, because I never hunted it and stuff. And anyways, it's if you're sitting at the pavilion and you're looking at the bathrooms, it would be to the right. And then there's one, it would be behind you. But we was sitting facing the one, it was would have been down in front of the pavilion, and watching. They went up to the other pavilion, which would have been to my left. And when they was walking up that way and got out of sight and stuff, I could hear one come from behind the back restroom area from the woods. Then I could hear it thud, 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 thud as it went down into the woods just directly in front of me, and then went on down the hill going toward the lake, and it sounded like it was at least a 5-foot stride, because you'd hear one foot go thud, and you'd hear a pause and then thud, and it was just walking. And when they come back down there, I told them, I said, one just went down that way, and the one guy went down there because there's a trail that goes down off from the other pavilion, and he walked over into the trail. And then he seen him backing up with his lights on something. He said, "Yeah, it was standing right there, just 25 foot off the edge of the grass on the edge of the trail." He said it had two big red eyes looking at him, and he just backed up away from it. But yeah, you can tell if you can pay attention and listen, and when there ain't a lot of noise or anything, you can hear them walk. If they want you to hear them walk, you'll hear it, and you can just hear that big flat foot hitting the ground.
Yeah. Well, when you mentioned about the sound or being in an area where they're feeding or they don't want you in there. That's how I took that thunder knock sound, as if trying to tell us, get out of here. That's what we kind of came to the conclusion was, a hint, get out of here. This is what we can do, or I can do to you.
It's probably the dominant male.
That's what we both agreed on. What we think we did wrong was when he was clacking the rocks together and we got the response that might have triggered. We don't know, but that big sucker smashing that log of, and again, it wasn't no baseball bat size. This was a log up against a big pine tree. I mean, it was that powerful of a sound. So yes, I think we were in a spot where they were there. They didn't want us there. And then that same male was the one that ran down the road a couple nights later, going from point A to point B, or another one traveling through. But I agree. They'll let you know. Get out, or like you have mentioned, how frequently you see them, which up here it's so thick of foliage that you got to get a little luckier, just because it's so thick and hard to visually get good lines of sight through. But
But I think that we've been tagged. I think they tag you once they get familiar with you, and an alpha female or alpha male accepts you, and you get to see one of them face to face, and it's not an aggressive or intimidation for you to leave. They tag you, and then we get to see them quite a bit. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, I've took out 2 or 3 different people, go to the areas where we see them, just be quiet and be still, and you'll either see them sitting in an area in the open kindly, or they'll walk out into an open area for you to see them.
Yeah. Tagging them, or them tagging you, they know you're not a threat. They know, they can just sense that good vibe off of you, and again, accepted. And that's the same thing that occurs up here. I can take somebody out. Now, not every time, of course.
No.
But it happens more than people think. And once a skeptic or somebody who has not had an encounter, and I tell them, come on, just be your normal self. And when it occurs, the look on their face, priceless. I love it. I love it. So,
it's not always. That's like when we take somebody. They asked us to take them out, or like down Salt Fork at the camp house. They want us to, hey, can we go with you here, or can we go with you over here where you can see them at? And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not making you no promises of nothing, because I don't control them. They do what they want. I said, if they show their stuff to you, you're lucky. But if they don't want to show you their stuff to you, they don't.
No.
And
that's right.
We've had a couple incidents where, like this spring, the incidents down there, the one found the hairbrush come out of the woods and landed right in front of one of the researchers, and Renee and the women were walking behind him, and it was a man, and he's well known in the Bigfoot world, but they was walking behind him talking and stuff, and he was taking the lead up, and it just come out and it landed just a few feet in front of him on the ground, and he's hollering, Renee, like not trying to get too loud
Right.
because he knows there's something in the area because the brush come flying out at him. And he asked her, that brush that Jens talked about, can you describe it? And she describes it and everything. He says, well, come on up here. I got something I want you to see. I want you to see. She gets up there and it's laying just a foot or so right in front of his feet. And he takes the sleeve of his shirt and puts it over his hand, and he bends down, picks it up, and it's got teeth marks on the handle of it. And this was a brand new brush we give her in 2022. And then there's hairs in the bristle and stuff, but we're not out to prove their DNA and all that junk. And he goes, this is the one you give her, or you want the hair out of it? He said, I don't want to touch nothing on this brush with my hand or anything, because they know you. They know your scent. She said, no, we don't do none of that stuff. He said, what are you going to do with it? So she takes the brush, and everybody that's with them, there's like 6 people and a young kid there. His son was there. And all these people are like, that's the hairbrush.
Isn't that cool?
God.
That's awesome.
And
yes.
So they all standing there, they're in awe, like, can't believe it. They told us they give her a hairbrush. And so they she walks it down to where we gifted it at the gifting tree and put it back. So we go back down there here and the 22nd of August to the 25th. We'll see what happens, what goes on then.
Yep. Now, with the hairbrush being thrown or, put back onto the trail, there's going to be skeptics out there who are going to say that was a setup, or not believe you. You have to be there in person to have this or these events happen, then come back saying, this was a setup, or, this was trickery. When you take a group out like you did and they get to experience that, more than one people, I mean, again.
Well, they walked up through there and went to the cave, and it's all on video on our channel. It's on video. And it was after they went to the cave and was coming back is when the brush ended up
coming back.
Yep.
Well, they they're watching. Yep. They're watching your reactions, and like that, the gifts that they've given me and over the years. I got you. It's just so. Again, the way they interact with the people that they accept.
Yeah.
The average Joe Blow who doesn't believe, or it ain't going to happen to them. They're not going to have that experience the first time they go out.
Nope.
I mean, if they do, 1 in a million, but like you, like me, people who go into the same areas, once you're accepted, the people you bring in, they know that they're part of you and I. It just makes me smile. It just makes me happy that we can enjoy them in that fashion.
Well, we've been to since last year, spring of last year, we went down there, April 23. And we was up to the handicap, me and her, just walking around. I was going to do a reenactment of where I seen the big 12-footer at that one night. And I was going to walked out there where it was standing, took my cane, and she was standing over by where we was sitting, and took a picture of me. And I was holding my cane above my head to show the height of it. And I told her to tell me when to stop putting my cane up, and I only had like 6 inches of almost a 4-foot cane with the length of my arm. And she said, that's about as tall as it was. Now I'm 6'2", and I've got about a 30-some inch arm length. Then you put almost a 30-some inch cane on top of that. So
You're talking
yeah,
about
it
12
was,
feet
yeah,
right
you're
in there.
talking
Yeah.
almost 12 foot or just right
Mhm.
around 12 foot or a little over 12 foot.
It's a
And
big
it made
boy.
me, and it was probably 5 foot across its shoulders. Way bigger than me. I
Massive.
wear a size 52 inch. I have a 52-inch chest, and it made me look like a child.
Oh, of course. I mean, no, I mean, and we, and we know there's bigger ones also. You
Yeah.
know? So that's a big boy right there.
Yeah.
So
But while we parked the car right at the edge of the parking area, walked out there and did that. And then we come around, there's a sidewalk that comes around in front of the pavilion. We was walking around there, and from the pavilion to the sidewalk, you can see the whole sidewalk. Here's a blackbird feather laying right on the middle of the sidewalk. She picks it up. We walk over toward the car, get to the car. Here's another blackbird feather right at her door at the car. And there was no feathers there when we got out of the car.
mm-hmm.
So there was 2 feathers there, and it's completely daylight. I mean, completely daylight. We're only 30 to 40 feet from the car at any time. And we've been gifted a turkey feather right at the last camp out. It was stuck right by her car, the tip of it stuck in the ground right by her door.
Came in when you're looking in a different direction, gifted that to you without you seeing, without either one of you seeing these feathers placed and that close. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
To have them come in that close to you. So
Well, it's been great having you on the show and stuff. We've had a little bit of technical difficulties tonight, but I think we got it through.
it's recording. I believe so. Well, Tim, this is Tim. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it, buddy.
Anytime.
Love you, buddy.
Anytime. I love you too. I got more for you also. So holler anytime. All right.
All right. We'll have you back.
Hey, take care. Good deal.
You too. You take care. God bless you.
You too, son.
Gotta keep. We've been over an hour, ain't it?